Hey everybody, how we doing? um, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of review some of these concepts that we have been talking about the last couple of days about westward expansion so we can move on, because obviously our time together is going to be pretty short for only for the next 4 weeks. So what we're going to do is we're going to review some topics, and we're looking to quiz on Monday. So there will be a Canvas quiz on Monday, and there'll be more to come with that. So what I've done is I've gone through the PowerPoint that we looked at, and then I did a video on, and I've highlighted key stuff in green that really kind of emphasize what we're trying to look at. So we know about Manifest Destiny, and we know about it being about westward expansion between the Atlantic and the Pacific. We know about it affecting the idea of Indian removal and relocating natives because of desired land, and we know about that it's going to cause conflict with Mexico because Mexico has land that we want, okay? And again, this kind of visualizes this. I know we talked about this before we left school, but it's been a long time. Again, this demonstrates what happens from America in terms of technology, stable government, and all that. And everything over here is what will benefit from that. And this lady represents the American progress, moving west and taking over this territory and making it better. Everything that has progressed, everything that will progress, okay? All right. So a couple things with Texas. Again, Texas doesn't belong to us when we originally get it. It's not a state. It's a piece of land that Mexico has that they want settlers to live on so that it's not completely overrun by natives. That's why white settlers can buy cheap land from Mexico, and we're allowed to bring slaves. This is the key, bringing slaves, because moving west to a fertile area where there is good farmland, you're going to want to bring your property, your slaves. Remember, slaves are considered property. That's a huge key moving forward, especially when we get into the Civil War, okay? All right. A lot of Americans move in. So many Americans that Mexico begins to become concerned, and they begin to insist that Americans follow certain rules that have to do with religion. They have to be Catholic. Obviously, Americans don't want that because they don't like to be told what religion they have to practice. They are told that, well, we're going to try to outlaw slavery. Well, Americans don't want to be told where they can and cannot go with their property, their slaves, especially when Mexico told them they could bring their slaves. And Mexico wants Americans to pay higher taxes. All of this begs the question of why would the Americans continue to live under Mexico if all these things are being implemented and they feel they have no rights? Very similar to the fact of what we talked about with revolution, okay? They're going to claim independence. When we were colonies from Britain, we declared independence. Excuse me, we had a conflict to make that happen. Same thing's going to happen here, okay? Conflict usually always has to be a part of an independence movement, and that includes the conflict with Mexico and the settlers living in Texas, including at the Alamo, which is this old Spanish missionary that you see at the bottom here. If you've never seen it, go to Texas and see it. Obviously, you can't go right now, but down the road, go see it, okay? Eventually, independence is gained. There's more conflict, and they call themselves the Republic of Texas. This is an independent country for a very short time, and eventually will become a part of the United States, and it will be a slave state, okay? So this is the part right when we are talking about it being a territory, a republic. But the important thing is that this area right here that I highlighted, Republic of Texas, is going to be a new slave state. So this number is eventually, once that happens, is going to be 14, okay? So we have to keep an eye on this balance, because we know moving from 1820 on, it was important that these two numbers stayed consistent in terms of the fact that we had an even number of slave states and free states, okay? So Oregon, again, we know that the territory is there for one specific purpose, and that is because people moving west can get good farmland, and we know that the United States is claiming this land with Britain, okay? People go west, they say, hey, it's great here, you should come and move west and take the Oregon Trail. Just like you did from the reading, you kind of saw the one about Jesse Applegate describing the struggles on the Oregon Trail. It's very much a harsh difficulty. By the way, if you can find the Oregon Trail game online, you should try to play it. It's kind of fun, and it kind of gives you an idea of what you had to experience. I remember playing this as a kid. I know you may be thinking, oh, that's old school. We look at the date, 1990. It is, but it's interesting. The fact is that the Oregon Trail, like any other group going west, experienced hardships. This was not an easy voyage. A lot of people died, but it was worth the risk because of the biggest thing that people have going for them out west, which is land, okay? I cannot stress this enough, guys. This is what it's all about, land. Because everybody wants to find land, and there's a huge amount of it. All right, that's not a very good circle. There's no land over here. The land to the west is already spoken for. This is the area out west that everybody's looking for. That's why this is all about westward expansion, okay? Because everybody wants a piece of what's out there, and they want to get land and be able to expand because not everybody can afford it over here, okay? That's what this is all about. That's what this is all about, okay? And again, we're trying to fulfill manifest destiny. Mexico has the last piece of the puzzle that we want, all right? They have this area right here, all right? We had discussed getting the land as early as 1846, and people were concerned that whether it would be slave territory or free territory, but this territory right here is what we have to fulfill manifest destiny. And if Mexico's not going to sell it to us, we're going to have war. You can see the conflict. The Mexican forces in green on the right here, the American forces, see the American flag there, on the left, okay? It's very dramatized. You know, they're not going to be that close to each other probably throughout the whole battle, but it gives you a good indication, all right? Manifest destiny has to be achieved, and it can only be achieved if we get that territory. Mexico's like, we're not going to sell it to you, all right? And so a war has started. It provoked war. So U.S. knew they had a stronger military, so they were willing to go to war with Mexico and sacrifice the casualties and those who died. 2-year war ends in Mexico basically saying, yeah, we have to give up. They have our capital, and we're going to sell the territory, okay? Now, part of that territory, as we talked about, is California. California discovers gold. There's gold discovered in California in 1848, very shortly before, this treaty. Don't worry about the time frame. Don't worry about that. But gold's discovered, and what's going to happen? Everybody's going to find out. They're going to go west. People want to find gold, and they want to create a fortune, all right? Make their fortune. I'm going to take the risk to go to California. I'm going to spend all my money getting there because I want to make money, okay? And this is all about an increase in the population. And the population is going to get so big that California in 2 years, 1848 to 1850, is going to want to apply for statehood. And that means they ask the government, we want to be a state, all right? But here's some problems here. When California wants to become a state, they want to be a free state, okay, which means a state that would not allow slavery. And California is a state that has a lot of gold, and it has a lot of good farmland. 2 things that are going to be desirable to everybody, including slave owners, okay? So you have a dilemma here because some people in the South at this, these states were even considering to secede or leave the Union if California was going to become a free state, and they were told they couldn't take their slaves or their property there, okay? So again, slaves are considered property because they're bought and sold, all right? That's the mentality here. So what happens is Congress has to decide what to do with California. They want to bring California in as a state because it's very wealthy and it will bring a lot of wealth to the country. But they have people that are concerned about this. So in the Compromise of 1850, again, a compromise is when one side wants one thing and the other side wants the other, and you have to find the middle ground that everybody can at least somewhat agree to, all right? This has 4 parts, and this is one of the most controversial law ever passed, okay? First of all, California is a free state. That's going to be added in, okay? Second of all, in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, the buying and selling of slaves in the capital will end. Slavery doesn't end in Washington, D.C. because it's a southern city, but buying and selling of slaves, going down the street and going to a slave auction, that's over. A lot of people may wonder, how could the slave trade still be existing in the nation's capital this time? It's because Washington, D.C. is very much in the South, okay? Next, popular sovereignty. Well, what does that mean? Popular sovereignty basically means if there's a big important issue that's going to take place and have to be decided in a state or a territory, you're going to let the people living there make the decision by voting. So what do you think they're going to vote on? They're going to decide on the issue of slavery and whether or not it's going to be allowed in all the territory that remained in Mexico. I'm going to give you a good visual of this in just a moment, okay? Popular sovereignty, letting the people make the choice. That's what you got to remember there. This one's the big one, though, okay? If you want to think about something that's going to have a major effect in the cause of the Civil War, it's the Fugitive Slave Law. And basically what it means is, as slaves were trying to get to the North, where the states had no slavery, the free states, if they were caught, they couldn't stay, and they had to be returned to their slave owners in the South. And if you were a regular citizen living in the North, you had to help. You had to be basically a slave catcher. So nowhere in the North anymore are you really safe if you are a runaway slave. And if you've heard the term Underground Railroad, this is how this happens, because we know that as part of the Underground Railroad, there are thousands and thousands of people trying to escape to the North to get to freedom. But it's not going to be any easier if runaway slaves don't have any safety in the North anymore, okay? So I'm going to show you something that's a good understanding of what that is, okay? This is a handbill. It's a small advertisement that described in Boston, if you were a person of color, if you were an African American, you need to be careful and watch out. Because if you look at the bottom, it says April 24th, 1851. This is shortly after the law was passed, and it basically says kidnappers and slave catchers are out to get you. Even if you were free, you could be targeted. It was not uncommon for people to be mistaken for a runaway slave, even if they were 100% free. Happened quite a bit. These kinds of things were posted all up in the North and handed out to people to be aware. Don't converse with police officers. Don't go anywhere that you would normally do, and watch out for people. Keep a watchful eye for kidnappers, because kidnappers had an incentive to capture you because they were going to get paid to return you to the South. We're going to talk more about this as we get to the cause of the Civil War later. As a visual here, if you look at the map here again, everything in green is free, everything in purple is slave, okay? The big thing we have to look at here is these two territories. The territory in blue, where it says voters allowed to decide whether to permit slavery. This blue area, this is popular sovereignty. Let those people get to choose. This is part of that compromise. People get to choose here whether or not they want slavery. This area in orange hasn't been settled yet, okay? But again, as I told you in the previous video, this is a dysfunctional time in American history, because we are 11 years before the Civil War, and it's fractured. We have slave areas, we have free areas, we have areas that it's up for debate whether it's going to happen, and we have areas that are not yet organized, okay? A lot to discuss more. There's going to be questions that accompany this video that will be posted in tomorrow's tomorrow's assignment. That's for the assignment for Thursday, April 8th. And be prepared, we are going to have a quiz on Monday over this, okay? I will talk to you all later. Take care. Be safe.